Hi, it's the People Mentor. So, welcome to this YouTube video. And today I've got Nina with me. I'm not even going to try and say her surname because me and words just don't mix. So, I'm going to let Nina introduce herself in full so you can find out a bit more about her. So, do tell us, Nina. Lovely to have you here. What do you do and what's your full name?
So my full name, the bit you didn't really say, is Ninochka, which is actually Russian. So my nana was German and a Russian right into my family. My mum wanted me to have a Russian name, and my dad wanted me to be called Nina after Nina Simone.
Oh,
So
yeah.
yeah, so my business is Nina Ketel Mentor. So I am a confidence boosting career coach.
Yeah, very much needed.
Thank you. And I've it has become my passion. I was a team leader in the local authority up until about 5 years ago. And I cared about my staff, my team, because I was so ambitious. It kind of went on to them. So it's like, you want promotion, we all want promotion, we all want to earn more. I showed them how to do it. I showed them how to complete the application form, how to make a list of what their skills were, how to break the skills down, how to use keywords. And I built up a reputation. And of course, my team, I had the highest turnover of staff for the right reasons, because
Yeah,
they kept flying the nest is the right way to say it.
yeah.
And then, of course, I'd meet various people at the shared photocopiers, and I got a reputation, and I finished up helping other people on the floor. And I remember being on a summer holiday in 2017. It was a family holiday, and I said to my daughter, I turned around and said, "My gosh, I've just worked out. I've just helped around 12 people in the last year get permanent positions, because a lot of people in the council, you'd come in on a fixed term contract, and fixed term contract,
Yeah.
not as bad as zero contracts, but it's not far from, because you were always living in fear. Am I going to have a job in 6 months? Are they going to keep me on? Can I pay this? Can I get a mortgage?" And I just thought, because of my unique skills and because of I care for people, these people, which is a mix of apprentices and, general administration workers going on to permanent positions from like scale three up to management, were getting permanent jobs because of me. And that's when I decided I was going to run my own business. I didn't know how to do it. And like we all do, it's imposter syndrome, and it's one step forward and about 5 million back. So that
It is. And interestingly, you just made me think of a story from my career. And when I was running my teams, when I was running some projects and I would have team members I was looking after. And like you say, it's very much you care about them, but you have high expectations. You set your boundaries, you set your expectations. And this person had been asking to be promoted, been applying for things, and kept being told by all her managers till she got to me that she wasn't capable, that she was at the set grade that she was meant to be, and to give it, say, 5 years, and then maybe she could go for the next grade. And she started working for me, and she was really capable. And I thought, I don't know what they're all missing about her.
Mhm.
So we did some work on her CV. She went for some interviews and she actually got a job 2 grades above, the same grade as me. And that to me was brilliant, because when you look after your team and when you care about them, you actually want them to fly. You want them to go past you
Oh, yeah.
because you think. And I still hear from her. She's actually in my Facebook group, and she's gone up another grade, and she's really leading, and she's got lots of experience that people can tap into, and that's a
Wonderful.
bonus.
Yes, yes, absolutely. That's kind of, it's one of the sayings that Richard Branson says. It's like, it's your staff that you look after, and they will look after the customers. I can't remember the actual saying now, but it's, you don't look after the customers, you look after your staff.
Yeah, that's right. And it's true, because also when you're not looking after your staff and when you're treating them abysmally,
Yep.
what happens is they're miserable, they're demotivated. The customers pick up on it. Of course
Yeah,
they do. So you've
exactly.
got to really look after them and care about them. And I
Exactly.
can I can remember walking out of one role and moving to another role, and one of the team members came up to me and said, Nicola, you've got very high expectations, but the one thing we know about you is that you care about us and will support us. And that was what mattered to me.
Yes, yes, yes. Oh,
Yeah.
you can relate to that. I remember one of my ladies, and again, another success story. Like you, I've got so many. And this one lady, she'd had 8 years out of the workplace. She had tried again and again. She was raising a family, and her husband was working abroad. And she was in the interview. I wasn't on that panel, but my then manager thought this lady needs a break. She was shaking. She had, she'd gained weight. She had lost all the confidence, lost her identity. My manager said, let's give her a break. Nina is a coach. We'll put her on Nina's team. Well, within 12 months, she'd gone up 2 grades.
Excellent.
And I remember she used to come in and she was like, to start with, she was like a mouse.
Yeah.
And she was very in oversight, black clothes, hiding away. A couple of months, it was red lipstick. Then it was a nice big top. And I managed 2 offices. And so she like was flexible between both offices. Oh, I'll go cover this, Nina. We had our team meetings and she had lots to say. And it was just wonderful. And when she got offered this promotion, and I remember her saying, I don't have to leave. I can stay with you because I feel as though I'm being dishonest to you and unfaithful. And it was like, no, you go, girl. And I still hear from her. And I remember it was a couple of Christmases ago, I woke up and a message to say, Nina, do you remember in my appraisals? Because when I did appraisals, and it was the same as you, I've heard you mention when you do your posts, about having that conversation. And the appraisals were never a tick in the box. I worked with my team to see what they wanted.
Yep.
And with hers, and she said, you said I was a really good trainer. Well, I'm now on the same grade you are in the training department. And I was like,
Oh,
oh.
brilliant.
And then last year I got another message to say, Nina, I'm now a senior officer and I'm a manager. And I'm like, whoa.
Excellent. That's excellent. And you're right. Um, it's never about a tick in the box. It's about wanting the best for your team. And what I loved, we moved to strengths-based conversations. And do you
Mhm.
know what? The difference that makes to employees when you talk about their strengths, when you talk about what they've done well in the last few weeks, you can see they blossom. So, and
Mhm.
we know that if we concentrate on weaknesses, what's going to happen? We're going to move it slightly. You're never going to move it hugely. But when you talk about this people's strengths and what they're passionate about, they go places. It shines, doesn't it?
It does. So again, with this lady I was just speaking about then, we worked on her strengths and weaknesses. This is why you and I've clicked, isn't it? Because
Yeah,
we value people's developments.
yeah,
And this is what we did with this lady is it was strengths and weaknesses. And her strength was Excel. So I made her the go-to person for Excel. And to start with, she'd come to me and just say, Nina, such and such had asked me to do X, Y, and Z. I said, that's fine. You said you don't have to come to me, you carry on. And then people would go to her directly. And like you said, you just watched her grow 10 feet tall. That's the
yeah.
best way to describe
And
it.
that's what you want. That's what you want to see with people. You want to know that they're enjoying themselves at work, that they are doing the things that they are passionate about. Now, of course, 80% of the time that's what you want. 20% of the time you're always going to have those jobs that you detest. um and I can think of many jobs that I used to detest. Obviously, as you go through the grades, you can probably delegate those bits that you're not so good at, which is the way it should work, because what we should be doing is tapping into those strengths. So you mentioned working with clients who've experienced workplace bullying. Can you share, while maintaining client confidentiality, a success story that particularly moved you?
Oh, yes, yes, yes. Over the years, I've come across a fair few many. Fair few many, what terrible English is that? Yeah, that was terrible. So one lady, I met the local authority. They were trying to help people get into work, or they wanted people who maybe on low paid jobs to go to higher jobs. And they held it at a local event called the Llama Lodge. And this was back to 2018, and because this is the time when I knew I wanted to do business, but I thought I didn't know what to do. I was the imposter syndrome. So I thought I'll go along and have a check and see what's going out. So I met this one lady. I was on a table that was it just so happened it was all ladies. And this one lady, she about 5 or 6 years younger than me. She'd been a cleaner. Going back probably 10 years before that, she'd worked in administration and through illness had to leave the workplace. She'd got herself well again.
Hmm.
And as we know that modern technology just all of a sudden, it just sort of like, I think from the 20, from 2000, it just kind of like went ballistic, didn't it?
Yeah, it did.
So she was really behind in all of that and her knowledge. And the only job she could get was cleaning in offices on an evening and no more than 16 hours a week. So obviously, she's on very, very low paid.
Yeah.
And she'd again gone for interview after interview, and she just felt as though she just said, I was one of life's misfits. I just slipped through the box. I felt I was like brought in for interview for that quota to say, yeah, you've done it. And I was never going to get the job.
Yeah.
And, again, she was just like, she had no confidence. So, and we were like working together to like rebuilding her self-belief and identifying her skills. Because again, while she was actually in the cleaning jobs, she was being bullied by the other staff there as well. Like people get into groups, don't they? Like you have the conversations of how to deal with things.
Yeah, the cliques. Yeah.
So she was finding she wasn't in the clique and they were picking on her all the time. And she just completely, she'd lost a zest for life. She
Mm.
was capable. So when she heard that, I was a team leader and I cared for my staff, she said, well, what can I do for her? That wasn't even her words. So we worked together on rebuilding her self-belief, on identifying her skills. Eventually she actually found a role in the council
Yeah.
and where she actually felt valued and respected.
Excellent.
And then I would say seeing her thrive is one of the most rewarding moments of my career so far. And like I say, so over the past 6 or 7 years, I've received again amazing, amazing messages from her saying how she's been told she's like one of the best candidates they've ever interviewed. And again, it's just,
Brilliant.
yeah, it's wonderful to see that from where she was, couldn't get a job, always being sort of like, I'd say used and abused is how she felt. If she got into a job, she was the one that
Mm.
on. And I think it's because she'd lacked confidence, she'd lost her identity.
Mm.
She was the person that was picked on.
Yeah. It's really
Yeah.
sad, isn't it, when that happens? And yet I've seen cliques so many times in my career. And when I was young, I'd admit, I can remember being in one where um, at that point in time, if you went in as a direct entrant, so you went in with the qualifications and you went up a grade or two,
Yes.
you were not well received in the workplace. And I can remember somebody coming in like that. Now, thinking back, I think a few of us were a little bit nicer to him than his peers were, because his peers really didn't want to know him, didn't want to understand him, felt he shouldn't be there because he hadn't had the years of experience that they
Mhm.
had. And really nobody called it out. And I think later on in life I started calling those things out because
Yes,
I realized the impact. But when you're young, you tend to follow the pack.
you do.
And what you have to realize is if it doesn't fit right with you, then you actually do need to say something. But it's incredibly difficult, isn't it? It's incredibly difficult.
It is. And it's just reminded me of another story, actually, just as I became a team leader, and again in the local authority. And there was one chap, and his manager was forever, ever putting on him. And I'd seen it. But of course, it wasn't my place to get involved until he actually came. Because, like I said earlier, I had a high turnover of staff because they kept reaching for the stars. And he'd seen my team I was advertising again. And he said, how can I move across? And actually,
Yeah.
my scale of administration were a scale 3 and he was a scale 4. And when he heard that, he just said, oh, I can't really obviously afford to drop down. And then he actually opened up how he felt victimized by his manager.
Mm.
And I remember it was it was about 5 o'clock. So obviously the office is closed about 5. And he just poured his heart out. And
So he needed to talk.
he needed to talk. He'd had no one to turn to. And where he sat in his office, he was sat on his own from everybody else. Like you said, the usual clique, they're all there. And the job he did, this should have been 2 or 3. And lots of places, they have a mass shake around and they don't actually, oh, that 1.5 person can do that job. And it doesn't work like that, especially when there's complications.
No.
He was being swamped by work. And I remember when we had the conversation, and I just literally, as I was a new manager, I'd done the policies course. So one of them was on the bullying. And we arranged to go for lunch. It was like the next day or so. And I remember he couldn't go, there was two ways out the building, past where his manager was or another way. And we had to go the other way so the manager didn't see him. And we went
Mm,
for lunch, and he didn't even know there was a bullying policy. And I remember we sat and we talked through it, and he just poured his heart out. He said how it was affecting his home life. He'd lost weight. He never wanted to come to work. There was times he didn't even want to get out of bed on a morning. And I was
terrible.
saying, this shouldn't happen. This is not allowed to happen.
No.
And he was a member of the Unison Union, and I knew somebody, so I put him in touch. And it wasn't as straightforward because, of course, once his manager was called out, of course, she did pick on him. But within 6 weeks, we had him moved out of that department into something else, and he's now thriving.
Oh, that's good to hear. Because when you get a manager like that, it's incredibly difficult to call it out in the first place.
Hmm.
Um, and like you say, I remember at the start of my career being in a business, the stockbrokers, where the my manager was on Valium and alcohol at the same time. So can you imagine the combination? She also
Yes.
suffered with depression.
Oh,
And
gosh.
so she would have moments where she would really be nasty and pick on you.
Mhm.
So I went to the office manager and to say that I couldn't cope with the way she was behaving. And please don't tell her. And of course he went straight running to her, didn't she? So when I came in the next day, she had sent me to Coventry. So not speaking to me, and every order I got was written to me, and she just totally blanked me. And I can remember going into the filing room and crying buckets because I just couldn't work out how to do it.
Yeah.
And then she picked on somebody else when somebody new started and she turned on them.
Yeah.
And it's incredibly difficult to stand up, especially when you don't feel that people are listening and doing something about it.
No, no, and it's terrible. And I think, again, this is why I'm so passionate about bringing bullying into my confidence boosting workshops, because
Yes,
I'm saying, put your hand up. It's happened. It's happened to me myself as a team leader. And it's not you, you're not the problem. The person, what I'm finding is usual, the bully, especially in managerial positions, they've got that job by default. They shouldn't
yeah,
have. And I feel that they know they're out of their depth, and the best means of defense is attack.
yeah. I,
And
I would agree with you. There's usually, it's nothing to do with you. It is solely to do with what's going on inside them.
exactly, or they feel that you're a threat.
Yes, I've seen that a lot. A
Yeah,
threat, definitely. Yeah.
so it's yes. So,
So let's go on to the next question I've got for you. So, having helped many people return to work after raising a family, what do you find is the biggest misconception these individuals have about their marketable skills?
oh my gosh. Oh, I've got, yeah, so many. Oh, I can see people when I'm talking to you now thinking of them. Oh, so many think they've got nothing to offer
Yeah.
because they've been out the workplace for years. They've been raising a family, and they don't realize how many skills they've
Mm.
built. The time management, problem solving, negotiating. They're a cook, they're a chef, they're a referee. Never mind between what goes on with the mums in the playground. Oh my
That's a
God.
good one. Yeah.
It's true. And it's like, you won't believe what happened there, Nina. And, I solved it out. I got them, I was in the middle and I got them like together to go for a coffee and believe in
The
themselves.
mediation,
Yeah,
collaboration.
now they're really good friends, and look at them there. They're on the summer fair barbecue together, etc. Oh, but what I do is like I help them see the value in what they've been doing for years. It's a real game changer. You see
Mm.
a light bulb going off in their head, and they're like, "Oh yes." So it's like, when I go through role plays, before we do role plays of interviews, we'll write things down, and I'll, like you, suggest things and let little ideas pop into their head. So it'll be multitasking. So I will do a role play and I'll say, in an interview, pretending we're a panel of three, it's three Ninas, can you tell me to you back to multitask? And they're like, oh, yes, I'm a mum. I had to do the finances, the taxi. I've got three children and I've got someone doing a ballet exam. Someone needs to be at the other side of Manchester for a rugby tournament. And they said, but I can't use these examples. I said, why not? Of course you can
Yeah,
do.
they're
As
real
long
life.
Exactly. Long as you can give, points, you're not going to waffle. It's straightforward to the point. You're going to get one, two, three, 4 points. Points get prizes, which is the job.
Absolutely like that. And I like the way to end that one on. I think that's a good point. And I've got a real one. Your recent post about your rescue dog, Greta Garbo, shows how personal growth can come from unexpected places. So how has this experience influenced your coaching approach?
Oh my gosh. Oh, Greta Garbo.
Yeah, she's
Oh,
cute.
she's next to me now, bless her. She's become my companion. She's just She blows me away when I just think about it. I smile every day. Greta has taught me, that patience and the power of small steps can sort of like just, it's, what do you say? It just brings you on. When she came to me, it was a year ago. She was shy, she was unsure, she was scared, she was anxious little lady. When you see her, she's actually got little pulls in her ears where I think she's being clipped and they must have been pulled out and they must have hurt so much.
Oh,
I know she was used for puppies in a puppy farm, kept outside in a crate. So she didn't have trust. She had, I think, 2 litters of puppies just from the size of her teats. So what she's had them taken away from her, and she's scared of people's legs, and she tries to actually snap at people when they run past her. So we have to be very careful. But now I remember I look back on a photograph and she was happy to be in my arms with the first night she came home, but she looked old in the face. And now she's like a puppy.
yeah.
Yeah, and I'd say it's with consistency, encouragement, lots of love, lots of praise. I do leave her because I have to go out and do things, but I'm always come home. She's always loved, and she's absolutely blossomed. And it's
Mm,
kind of a reminder that confidence grows gradually.
mm,
Everyone deserves kindness and time to find their feet. So this is really how I wrote that post is by spending quality time with Greta, by praising her, by loving her, by giving her little treats and toys. And also just something is good. All right. I won't maybe say giving my candidates good food, but I've given her good quality food. And again, she trusts me.
mm,
And so when I'm working with clients, it's a trust. You build their trust up by
mm,
confidence breeds confidence. And I remember that came from my parents.
mm.
And that's what I find I do with my clients.
Yeah,
So,
that makes sense. Total
yeah,
sense. And I can see that also that reward bit as and I see that within your posts and everything, you recognize and you reward. So which is what you're doing with your lovely little dog, but also with your clients. So
yes,
that's
exactly.
really good. Yeah. So as a confidence coach, you often have to deliver honest feedback, and that can be sometimes really hard to hear, can't it?
Yes.
So, how do you approach these difficult conversations while maintaining your client's trust and motivation?
Yeah, no, this is a tough one. Well and truly, because people, when we look at my clients, a lot of them are very broken. They've lost their identity, they've had so many knockbacks. I don't want to shatter them anymore. But however, you know, I always comes from a place of care and honesty when I talk with people, and I am honest.
Yeah.
But if something needs to be said, I do frame it constructively. And what I do is I don't go, oh, look at the state of you, you're dressed terrible, whoa, blah, 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 blah. I come from it, wow, you're looking really well today. Gosh, have you done something nice with your hair? Oh, what have you been up to? Or we'll talk about maybe family life and we'll start off on real positives. And then we'll start working on, what can be improved and how it can benefit them. So again, we could go back to, well, actually, such and such mum, they're all together. This was a clinique, this was a clique. and I'm not part of it. So then we'll work on how can you get part of it? Oh, why don't you say, look, it's getting very cold at the moment. They're wearing lovely hats. Oh, I like that hat. Where's that from? And again, I start building people's confidence up.
Hmm.
So again, by discussing, I'm trying to think of another good example. Yeah, I'd say another way I do it, again, by talking about get them to talk about what they've been through. And then I let them know that I believe in their potential of what they're available to do. So when I'm working through their potential and when I'm pointing out a challenge, and how much they've grown. So I guess a good example is maybe they've worked with me for 6 weeks. So the first time, oh, do you remember this one? I asked X, Y question and you couldn't think of it. And you said, oh, I can't do any jobs like that. I've not used a typewriter. When I give feedback, it's constructive feedback. It's confidence breeds confidence. We work on their strengths and
Yeah.
weaknesses. So there will be weaknesses, and I always turn it on its head. So something that my mum always said to me, you've got a problem. Imagine the Eiffel Tower. So you've got the Eiffel Tower, the point at the top. So you put your problem up there and it's going to fall off. So we turn the Eiffel Tower round. So the point is at the bottom and you've got broad shoulders. And then we can work on the problem there.
Yeah.
That's how I work on constructive feedback and I look for their positives and then I will drop in. Well, I wouldn't say it that way. When we're say doing an interview
Yeah.
role play and you never can criticize your ex-manager. You never know. That's it. That could have been, I could be that person's wife. They could be my brother. So so I kind of do it in little steps like that, not making a huge hoo-ha, just I wouldn't say it that way. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's really useful because it can be quite easy if you've left a job because of it not being a good job, because you've had bad things happen. If you start bringing that in, it just puts you in a more negative um, viewpoint. They see you as quite a negative person, and that's going to put them off, isn't it? So you're right. You really need to turn it around and you need to change how you address that. And I think that goes back to the things that I often discuss, which I know you do as well, is about the opportunities. What are the
Thank
opportunities out of this? So, yeah, no, that's really helpful. Thank you, Nina.
you.
So many of your clients struggle with a not good enough syndrome. So, what's your first step in helping someone overcome this mindset?
Sure. Well, it starts with building trust. I listen, I ask questions, I make notes, and I gently help them to see how certain behaviors might be holding them back. As I just said before,
Yeah,
going in with a negative attitude about a previous person they work with, colleague, manager, department, office.
yeah,
And it's like, just let that go. It's happened. This is moving forward. So, and I know change is hard, but I focus on what they want to achieve and show them how small shifts, little baby steps can get big results.
yeah, yeah. No, that's really important. So,
Mm.
let's talk about, when you work with people who've been in the same role for up to 20 years, and it's interesting, isn't it? Because you can really get stuck in a rut and stay in a job, and even though you're not probably entirely happy as well. So, what's your advice for someone who feels too old to make a career change?
Yeah. So what I say is I actually start by helping them challenge that inner critic because
Yeah,
that inner critic is them. We then like look at their achievements, look at their strengths and the times they've overcome obstacles. And this is in general in life, not just in the workplace.
yeah,
And then it's about replacing the negative voice in that head with one that's more supportive and realistic.
yeah,
What I do say, and again, I speak from experience because when I returned to the workplace, I knew I was ambitious. I was capable of doing so much more. But I went into a low paid job thinking, right, I'll just get my confidence going. I'll just see how this works. And before I knew it was 10 years down the line.
yeah,
And what happens is you're in that job, and again, you become part of the furniture.
yeah. You do. You're right.
And people don't realize, you take on because you are, you want to prove yourself, you take on more and more and more. You kept on the very low hourly rate, which I was on the scale too, which, is unbelievable when I look back on it now. But with my own experiences, I share this in like my opening sort of like conversations with my clients. And, I've got little cartoons somewhere and it shows and near enough the same. It's like you're doing the same job, and the next thing, this lady sat there next to her laptop is going higher and higher on the chair, and what it is all the workload underneath is coming.
Yeah.
She's on the same job. She went in the same grade. The title of the job's not changed, but her workload has grown. And when I highlight that to people, they're like, "Oh my gosh!" And I will do like a columns of what your job description was and what it is now. And when they see the difference, it's a light bulb moment.
You know, that's a really good one because it's so true because you become part of the furniture, as you said, they come to rely on you. They don't actually want you to move because you're dependable. You know the work inside out, and actually they can shove you anything they like as a little bit extra because they know that you're more than capable. So that
Exactly.
is a really good exercise to demonstrate that. I like that one. That's good.
Thank you
Yeah.
very much.
Your whole motto seems to be we work to live, not live to work. How do you help clients find that balance while still pursuing career growth?
Right, so I encourage my clients to prioritize what matters the most, whether it's the family time, hobbies, or simply just to rest. A career should fit into their life, not take over.
Yeah.
Together we set realistic goals that support their whole self, not just their job title. So you should not be going to work, not living just to work, work, work. You should be working just so you can enjoy the job that you do.
Yeah.
So it's got to be, if a job is taking over your life or again, you're on a basic low job or even on a managerial job and you've got no quality of life, what's the point?
Yeah.
Life flashes by us before we know it. And we've
Yeah.
got to be able to enjoy doing what we enjoy doing. It's not just about, you're not sleeping or you're stressed, you're anxious because of work. Your balance is wrong. We have to turn it on its head.
Yeah, no, you're right. And it's interesting, isn't it? And sometimes we don't see it ourselves until we get to ill health or burnout. And I think it's really important that we regularly reflect on our what our workload's like. Are we getting the right balance? Because we don't really do that very often, do we? We just get embroiled in a job. We live and breathe it, and then we realize down the line that it actually that wasn't very good for us.
No.
So yeah, that's a really good point. Okay, so many of your clients come to you during vulnerable periods in their life. So, what's a challenging conversation you've had with a client that led to a breakthrough moment in their journey?
Yeah, so I once worked with a client who felt stuck in a toxic job, but she was terrified to leave. It's the fear of the unknown.
Mm,
So we explored her fears and helped see possibilities ahead. It was tough, very, very tough conversation. But once she took that leap, her confidence soared. And she later told me she was the best decision she'd ever made in her life.
oh, that's excellent. Yeah, that's good. So, a final question looking at your diverse specializations from post divorce transitions to empty nest syndrome, what common thread have you found in helping people rebuild their confidence? So, is there something that's underlying it all that is really affecting them that sort of destroys their confidence that we could perhaps think about in the workplace to avoid it?
Yeah. It's about rediscovering self-belief. It's self-belief, and that's how I feel for myself. I lost my own identity well and truly, and I've got it back now. And, no matter the circumstances for losing your identity, your
Yeah,
self-belief, like you say, divorce, job losses, emptiness syndrome, I've got all of that as well at the moment. It's so easy to lose who you were.
yeah.
So my role, I feel, is to remind them they're still the same capable person, just ready for a new chapter in their life.
Yeah, I've actually written a post, funnily enough, to go out next week, and it's
Okay.
around my divorce, and the impact it had on me. Because what happened to me was I got terrible migraines, and I couldn't cope in the workplace, and so much so that my mum and dad kindly paid for me to see a therapist who was really more about massaging and that kind of thing. But in doing that weekly and giving myself that time to sort of relax, I went along to one session after several weeks and boom, she don't know what she did, but they just suddenly stopped. And my divorce was pretty traumatic. Um, and the least said about it, the better, really, because of obviously you still got the family there, so you still have to think about how they feel about it all. But what I realized at work was that I had gone from this very confident, exuberant person and withdrawn completely into myself and become like a mouse.
Yep.
And as soon as I got divorced, everybody said to me, "What's happened to you, Nicola? You've become really lively and you're very vocal now." And I realized I'd been dampened down. And it's
Yes.
funny how it happens, isn't it?
It happens over time. It doesn't happen overnight,
Yeah.
and you don't even realize.
No,
And
you
it's
don't.
little things you've been chipped away at. And sometimes you just you shut up, you put up and shut up
That's
because
right.
you've given up giving your voice because you just spoken over anywhere or ignored. And so it's anything for an easy life, isn't it?
Exactly. Yeah, it is. It is. Thank goodness I have a husband who's not like that at all now. He's absolutely supportive and helpful. So, what I'd like to end with is, do you want to share links of how people can get hold of you, and what sort of anything else that you think would help benefit them before we finish?
Yeah, so if you would like to get hold of me, I've now got Nina's podcast, and that can be reached on Spotify. As far as I know, it's on the other platforms, which is Amazon, but I haven't looked into that, so please bear with me. But I do also have on Facebook Nina's podcast, so it's easy to find, and all the details are on there for the podcast. Now, our podcast is, again, for like usual, where it's supporting local businesses, local fairs. But we've gone one better because of my own experiences. We're actually going to be talking about taboo subjects. So we are going to
Good.
talk about, divorce, domestic abuse, all types of domestic abuse. We're also going to talk about addiction, which is also drink, substance abuse, um, well, that they cover it, but it's not going to be sitting there and just moaning, oh, blah, blah, this is why I did. We're actually going to have practical help and support. So I will be able to tell you because it's for Stockport area community and also Greater Manchester, but we will have links of where you can get help. So again, I hold my hand up because of the traumatic time I had the past 18 months is I was drinking way too much. And I didn't know how I could stop. I wasn't an alcoholic, but I was getting close because it was every night. I'll have wine. Oh, it's wine o'clock. It's the easiest way. And I didn't know I could go to my GP and just say, look, can I have, some help here? And so, and all these help is free to be signpost. So this is what we'll discuss in the podcast.
Excellent.
I've also got on Facebook, it's Nina Ketel Mentor. And on Ketel Mentor, is again, I share practical tips of self-belief, tools for building your confidence, toot your horn, and also down to interview techniques and various questions that you can practice. So we will have your standard comedy style interview questions, then we'll have fun and weird ones, and what's a good one? Why are potholes round? But I'll give you examples of how you can answer them to get those when you go into that interview, feeling 10 feet tall and, getting those points. And I can also be found on LinkedIn. I'm Nina Ketel on LinkedIn. I was just trying to think about it.
Yeah.
I also have a website, which is www.ninaketelmentor.com.
Okay, that's brilliant. I really appreciate your time today, and it was lovely to swap stories. All
It's
right,
been-
so thank you so much. Okay, it's the People
Thank
Mentor signing off. Right.
thank you so much.